Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha World Raisers, Sabine and Roger here. Let's watch the symbolism of Ganesh Chaturthi. We don't know what Chaturthi is yet, but we'll find out.
It's the only culture which is still conscious that God is our making. Dissolving Him is the symbol that if you use your intellect right, you can dissolve the world. To reverse these roles is most important because if you determine the nature of your mind, something wonderful could happen. There is a festival in the months of August and September in India. It's called Ganesh Chaturthi.
Yeah, festival.
It is a god with an elephant face. It was not supposed to be an elephant, it was supposed to be a ghana. Somewhere one artist made a mistake and it became an elephant. It's called Ganapati, that means the chief of ghanas. So, they will make an image of Ganesh with clay, unburnt, and then they will paint him up nicely. Some people do without paint, some people will do with paint. And then they will worship him and huge festival, music festivals happening around him, big events. Some people build huge ones, 108 feet tall, big ones.
Wow.
But after that period is over, usually 1 week, 15 days, in different places, different times, then they will go and drown it in the lake or in the ocean, so that God dissolves. Create a god, create a frenzy around him, make him your entire life. For those 15 days or 1 month, there's nothing else but Ganesh. We eat what he eats, we only like what he likes, everything is about him. But then, one day we'll dissolve him. Once he's dissolved, he's done. It's the only culture which is still conscious that God is our making. So, he is the symbol of intellectual activity because he wrote great scriptures and the sage who dictated the scriptures to him, the challenge for him from Ganesh was, he should not pause in the dictation. He must continuously speak and he will continuously write. He said, if you pause, I won't write further. It's a test for the sage, whether what he's speaking is really a fountainhead of his being or is it something scholarly that he makes up in his head. So Ganesh said, only uninterrupted dictation, if you do, I will write. If you pause somewhere, once I keep my pen down, I will not write again. So sage Vyasa spoke uninterrupted. It went on for months on end. Ganesh wrote without missing a single word, the best stenographer you can have. He is the symbol of human intellect. This is very symbolically right because this is the nature of your intellect. You can use it to consciously imagine something. Wonderful imagination, a man with an elephant head. An elephant head because that's the biggest head you can find on the planet. That means lots of brain. So, the symbol of human intellect, dissolving him is the symbol that if you use your intellect right, you can dissolve the world. Dissolving the activity of your intellect is no problem. Once you dissolve the world with your imagination, switching off the imagination is not a big problem. You can obliterate the universe with your imagination. In your experience, universe will not exist if you create a powerful imagination. But then, switching off the imagination is a much simpler process. If the imagination is consciously developed, turning it off is easy. Right now, bits and pieces of imagination happening unconsciously, it looks like it's impossible to stop it. So the entire festival is symbolic of this, that we create him and you must see the festivity that happens around him. Usually he's kept in public places. In every home it'll be kept, private ones. Apart from that, on the streets, big ones, many streets will be blocked for this 15 days to 30 days, traffic stopped, everything. He will be sitting right in the middle of the street, big celebrations, music,
Nice.
stuff happens around it, people live around him for this period. But when the time comes, they just go dissolve him and that's about it. He's done. Next 1 year, nobody thinks about it. If you could do this full-fledged with your imagination and your intellect, oh, this mind or this activity that we call as mind, I want you to get this clearly. Your mind is not an absolute thing. It is only a certain type of activity. No activity, no mind. Yes or no? Suppose you have no thought at all right now. Do you have a mind? Oh, I have a mind, I don't have a mind. Yes, you have, because that's a thought. If there is no thought, there is no such thing as mind, because it's a certain activity. Consciousness is capable of being here without the assistance of activity. Activity does not make consciousness. Consciousness makes activity. I move the hand does not move me. It's me who moves the hand. Similarly, it's me who moves the mind. It's not the other way round, but it's become the other way round. The nature of your mind has become you, isn't it? All the freaky stuff that your mind does has become your quality, isn't it? Now, to reverse these roles is most important, because if you determine the nature of your mind, something wonderful could happen. If your mind determines the nature of who you are, it is an accident. Is it a terrible accident or not? That situations decide, but it's an accident.
Whoa. So that was great. So it's talking about the festival, right? So yeah, I thought that was incredible. So I visualized this huge Ganesh statue, right, blocking the streets, and then for the duration of the festival, and everybody is making Ganesh their world, and just quite the celebration. I can only imagine it because I've never seen anything about it yet. And then they take it, to the water and they dissolve it, and then it's gone. So then it reminded me of the sand mandalas in Tibetan Buddhism, right? Where they create this elaborate, mandala out of colorful sand, and then they leave it for a certain amount of time, and then they wipe it away, right? And then they clear it up to symbolize impermanence, right? So, and then one thing Sadhguru touched on also was that only culture that we're conscious that we created God.
What did he mean by that?
Well, it's the conceptualized notion of God, right? So yeah, there is a supreme source of absolutely everything, but it's it's totally beyond our intellect, our capacity to understand and really know, right? So we've created all these concepts, and then ultimately, that's the limited mind that he's talking about. But when we transcend that, then we're aware of the big mind, right? So the ultimate infinite field of consciousness, which is our very mind, but we haven't realized it yet. And everything is within that mind, right? So then he's touching on, consciousness itself, the mind, the activity of the mind is within the field of consciousness, right? So when he's saying that, so that I moved my hand, it's not the hand that's moving me. It's the same thing with consciousness. The activity of the mind can only arise because of the field of consciousness itself, right? So, and I really love how Buddhism in general really, hammers that away, is that it's all about mind. Everything is an appearance to the mind, right? Mm-hmm. So the ultimate infinite field of consciousness, and then we're all manifestations within, everything's arising within mind, right? So even the concepts that we have, of God, like even the avatars that, come into being on this planet, the avatars of Vishnu that serve a purpose, they're still arising within the mind, right? So not to say that there isn't a transcendent aspect beyond the universe itself, where Krishna is, has his own realm and all that, but it's still beyond this universe, and it's manifesting, as this universe. So for non-duality's sake, within our experience, it's the unmanifest, right? The Godhead, the infinite potentiality manifesting as all of existence. And even an avatar would still be coming up within the mind, even if it's God's mind, it's Krishna's mind, or Shiva's mind, right? Mm. So, yeah, I thought that was great. And then, so touching on, right, that it wasn't an elephant head originally, right? The real story sounds like Sadhguru was saying is that it's a Gana, right? So the Ganapati means, chief of the Ganas, and that's where Ganesha's head actually came from. So that was a great clarification, but saying over time, the artists and the portrayals and the imagination grew, and then it evolved into being an elephant's head, which he's not saying that it's good or bad that happened. He's just saying that that's what's happened, right? And it is what it is, right? But what better representation of that? The biggest brain, right, is the biggest head, so it was an elephant head. And talk about, imagination. You take the biggest head, on the planet, and then putting it on, a human boy.
Is that the biggest head, though?
Well, for mammals, probably.
Oh, okay.
Are you talking about a whale's head?
Yeah, because I thought, but what about whales?
Oh, come on, Sabina.
Oh, because they live in the water, and they couldn't...
Oh, that's so funny.
What?
Well, yeah, I think he's just talking about, like, land mammals, something that would make sense. Like, yeah, we're not living in water. But anyways, it's funny. But anyways, so what I was going with there is, the symbolic of the intellect, right? So the big brain, and then also representation of the imagination, right? So imaginatively, kind of creating that in our mind. But eventually, Sadhguru is getting that we need to let go of our intellect. And I think that was also symbolic of the, putting Ganesh into the water to dissolve, perhaps symbolic of how we need to dissolve our own intellect and our limited intelligence, thinking that we know so much. Really, on the spiritual journey, it's about, letting go of the things we know. Like Krishnamurti was big on that, right? Freedom from the known. We have to free ourselves from our beliefs and our mental constructs. And then once you do that, then it's a more of a freedom. You're emptying your cup, right? And then you can begin to grow and evolve and truly get a glimpse of just, pure consciousness and awareness and the actual source of existence. So thank you so much for joining us as we learn more about Ganesh. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Keeps you up to date. Let us know what you think down in the comments kindly. And remember, raise yourself
and raise the world. Thank you so much, everyone, and a very special thank you to all our members. We love you.
Peace.